I've traveled from the planet Uranus to understand Earth's economies. I'm here in Japan, where it experienced one of the greatest stock market bubbles of all time. To help explain it to me, please welcome our special guest, the Japanese finance minister. I am so honored that you think anyone cares about this issue. Man, this is ridiculous, because we had to be politically correct. The Japanese finance minister is a white guy with no accent. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Japan's bubble was caused by poor government decisions. Come on, you knew I'd say that. To understand how this happened, we need to go back to 1985, when it first started, when there was trade tensions between Japan and America. Japan was a rising economic powerhouse, exporting electronics all over the world. And rather than produce things that people actually wanted, America wanted a trade war. Sound familiar? You'd think China and Japan would get along great. Japan just doesn't understand me. I fight with America over cheap electronics. China just doesn't understand me. I fight with America over cheap electronics. What else contributed to this situation? In 1985, the US dollar was extremely strong, and you can tell that Ronald Reagan kept interest rates too high for too long because we had a strong dollar even with a trade deficit with Japan. Dude, I have US dollars! Yeah? What are you gonna buy with them? Japanese cars. Well, Reagan had to raise interest rates to stop the 1970s inflation. And I think the problem is Japan's government blocked American imports, although they claimed it was only strategic industries.
So business, finance, sales, insurance, advertising, financial services, marketing, credit, startup companies, distribution, management, consulting firms, market research, e-commerce, agribusiness, consumer electronics, international trade, social media, franchising, business to business,
water, air. But then America put tariffs and blocked business mergers under the guise of national security. We cannot let these products into America for national security purposes. It's a Hello Kitty lunchbox. I know, I want one. By the way, is it possible the Japanese products were actually better? Yeah, I'm stuck on the side of the road. I'm gonna need to rent a Honda to get to the General Motors sales convention. I think most Japanese would rather have another bomb dropped on Hiroshima than drive a Buick. So the currency affected the trade imbalances? Right, the fact that the US dollar was so strong made it much more expensive for the Japanese to buy American products. So then in 1985, America, Japan, Germany, the United Kingdom, and France reached an agreement to depreciate the US dollar, known as the Plaza Accord, because it was held at the Plaza Hotel. They were saying, hey, I know a US dollar costs way too much for you foreigners, but let's meet at the most expensive luxury hotel in New York City. Maybe that's how these idiots came up with it. It is $300 to turn on the television in my hotel room. We got to bring the dollar down. How does a currency intervention like that work? Multiple central banks sold 10 billion US dollars and bought foreign currencies. So over the next 2 years, the US dollar fell 50% against the Japanese yen. Wow, that's a huge reduction. So did it help the trade deficit with Japan? No, it didn't, because the Japanese still had restrictions on American imports for key industries, so all it did was waste 10 billion. I would not buy a Buick if it was free. The 10 billion wasn't spent, it was invested. The central banks made a profit on buying Japanese yen and British pounds. At the expense of Americans' purchasing power, the central bank printed dollars to buy foreign currencies. The whole point of having foreign currencies on reserve is to protect the value of the US dollar. It's like insurance for a rainy day. So it's idiotic to claim a gain on your reserves. That's like claiming a gain on your health insurance premium because you self-inflict a wound. I'm going to buy costly health insurance. Sold. I made a profit. Hey, you'd make a good central banker. By the way, here's a fun fact. 2 years later in 1988, Donald Trump actually bought the Plaza Hotel. Then he had to declare bankruptcy on it. So even with a 50% depreciation in the dollar, he still couldn't get foreigners to stay there. There is only one way I can afford the television in my hotel room. Pay up! So what was the effect of the Plaza Accord if it didn't reduce the trade deficit with Japan? It created a bubble in Japanese assets because Americans now wanted to buy the Japanese yen. This'll never go down because the government said so. This message was sponsored by Bloomberg, Financial Times, and the Borg Mind Control. Then in 1987, to combat the rising yen and still keep competitive exports, the Japanese central bank resumed lowering interest rates. This fueled the bubble even further, as first you had foreign credit coming in because of a rising yen. Now you have domestic credit flowing because of the lower interest rates. It sent the stock market and land values soaring to the moon. Good thing Donald Trump bought the Plaza Hotel in New York. And at the peak of the bubble, the Japanese Imperial Palace was worth more than the entire state of California. I would pay the blood of my children for a closet-sized apartment in Tokyo. But I would never buy a Buick. The great irony is, Americans depreciated the US dollar through the Plaza Accord with the intention of getting people to buy American goods, and instead fueled them to buy the Japanese stock market. Buy the newest American cars, planes, and boats so you can flee to Japan faster. Take the American-made shirt right off my back. I'd kill to have a Hello Kitty. Did you say you would kill for him? I told you that Hello Kitty was a national security risk. Wow, so then what happened? Do you have to ask? Of course the stock market crashed. It fell faster than Hillary Clinton with menopause dizziness at the roller rink. The credit expansion got so intense that the central bank thought it was appropriate to raise rates. And that's what caused the crash. As you can see from this chart, the central bank just started jacking up them rates. If you asked a little child with cerebral palsy to use an Etch-a-Sketch to draw interest rates that would make a crash like that, it would look exactly like that. So when the Japanese markets crashed, did the currency go down with it? Well, no, because under a system of fractional reserve banking, remember that credit is money. So normally a flood of credit would lower the value of the currency. But in this case, the Plaza Accord had foreigners artificially rushing in to buy the yen. I told you it'd never go down because the government said so. This message was sponsored by Bloomberg, the Borg Mind Control, and Vulcan Mind Meld Parasite Thinking. So then as the credit is withdrawn, this leads to a stronger currency, which makes the debt harder to pay, which then makes them take on less debt, which leads to a snowballing, stronger currency. Now the Japanese definitely aren't buying Buicks. I got a margin call. I'm in too deep. Oh, you bought stocks? No, it's library overdraft fines. In yen. You're just reckless, man. In this episode, we learned how Japan's asset bubble was created in the 1980s. In part 2, we'll discuss the decline. You can check our website as always for a schedule of upcoming episodes, and we'll see you next week, Saturday, at 1 p.m. New York time. For the 100th time, I fight with America over cheap electronics. I just want to end the trade war. I'm gonna buy a Buick. Aw, you idiot.